If you are worn out from trying to create fresh content for all the different channels where you post, your blog, your email list, YouTube, a podcast, social media, every single week, then today's episode is for you. The good news is you don't have to create new content for all those platforms. See, if you do it the right way, you can create one piece of content for one of those platforms and then turn it into content for all of the others. And you can do it in a way that is not repetitive or annoying to your audience. So today I'm going to share with you exactly how I have been repurposing my own content to create content that I can share in multiple places, including how I turn my podcast episodes into YouTube videos and emails and coming soon blog posts too. And yes, I will also share with you how I am using AI to help with the process, but in a totally ethical way that maintains your unique voice, your unique perspectives, and make sure that the content you're putting out really is you and isn't just AI-generated nonsense. All right, let's jump in and talk about how to simplify your content creation and content repurposing. Are you a digital product or course creator selling on platforms like Teachers Pay Teachers, Etsy, or your own website? Ready to grow your business, but not into the kind of constant hustle that leads straight to burnout? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to The Savvy Seller. I'm Kristen Doyle, and I'm here to give you no-fluff tools and strategies that move the needle for your business without burning you out in the process. Things like SEO, no-stress marketing, email list building, automations, and so much more. Let's get started, y'all. So you will start with the very first piece of content you're creating, and I'm going to call that your source content. Your source content needs to be whatever format feels the easiest for you to create. So for me, the source content is usually a voice memo. Now, that's not something I ever publish anywhere. Eventually, it does turn into the recorded podcast episode. So if we want to think about which piece of content I'm creating first, it's the podcast. The reason I do that is because for me, it is a whole lot easier to just talk things out in a voice memo, especially when I know it's one I'm not ever going to share publicly. So it's okay if I make mistakes, stumble over my words, have to go back and restart and rethink things. All of that is fine because this voice memo is just for me. Once I record that voice memo, then I take that and I use it to create an organized podcast outline. So you guys aren't stuck listening to my rambling voice memo. You get those same thoughts, but just shuffled around and put in a more organized fashion. From there, I record my podcast episode, and the transcript of that podcast episode really is what becomes the source document for everything else I'm going to create. Now, for years, in fact, since the very first episode of my podcast, I have been recording video alongside my podcast episodes. I actually record in Zoom, so I am recording the audio, but also the video at the same time. And for, I'm going to say 95% of those episodes, I even did my hair and makeup. So it was ready to use those videos, but I've been super nervous about putting them on YouTube for some reason. So I have just recently started taking those videos and putting them on YouTube. Now, for you, maybe a podcast episode is not your thing. Maybe you don't even have a podcast. Maybe for you, writing is what feels easier. So you start with that blog post you write as your source content. Whatever it is, start with the thing that feels the most natural, where that content just really flows out of you easily. Whether that's talking it out, writing it, or recording a video. Start with that and then turn it into those other pieces of content. Now, I know one mindset block around repurposing is that we're all worried that if we repurpose content across multiple platforms, it's going to be repetitive and it's going to annoy our audience. But I want you to reframe your thinking around that. Have a little mindset shift. See, when I was a teacher, I knew that I needed to differentiate my lessons. I would teach the exact same content, but I would deliver it in different ways. because every kid in my class had a different learning style. Some of them needed to do the work on a worksheet, even though worksheets get a bad rap these days. Some of them needed to see it visually or talk it out with partners. So I knew I needed to deliver this content and give my students ways to practice in a lot of different ways because they all have different learning styles. Now, we don't think about our learning styles as adults nearly as often, but we do still have our own unique learning styles as adults. It's not something you grow out of after you graduate school. Some people prefer to listen to podcasts. Maybe they like to listen while they're driving or taking a walk. Other people have told me that they need the video to stay focused because that's engaging their eyes and their ears. I actually had someone email me just a week or two ago and say they were so glad I'm putting things on YouTube now because they like the content. But when they just listen to a podcast, they get distracted and the video keeps them focused. I have had other people email me and say, hey, I love your stuff, but I don't listen to podcasts, so I'm really glad you have the transcripts on your show notes. And for those people, maybe they'd actually prefer to be able to read a blog post, which is why that is coming very soon for me as well. A lot of people like to have something they can read because they're really quick readers, or maybe that's just the way they consume content the best. It's not about being repetitive. It's about making your content more accessible to more people. And when you are sharing about your content, if you share all of the places people can access your content at one time, it looks like accessibility instead of looking like this girl has emailed me 3 times about this same content. And one of them is on her podcast, and one of them is on YouTube, and one of them is her blog, but it's all the same stuff. See, when we do it all together and we share those options for people, it really does just help to make the content more accessible for everyone. Okay, so let's talk super practical. What does it look like to actually repurpose that content? What's the workflow? So for me, my workflow is that I create that podcast episode first. I start with the voice memo, generate an outline from that, and then I record my final podcast episode based on the outline. Then I take the video from the same thing, and I'm going to put that on YouTube. It's the exact same content. It's the same me saying the same words at the same time, but it needs to be edited a little differently. See, if I just slapped up the full video of the podcast episode, that would be boring, and it wouldn't help those people who need those visual cues. So when I edit for YouTube, I am adding some on-screen bullet points, maybe a quote, something like that. I don't do super heavy editing because, number one, I don't have time, and I am not that good at it. But number two, I really think it doesn't necessarily need to be super fancy for people to engage and enjoy it. In fact, we have seen over and over recently with AI, with how easy it can be sometimes to create super polished and professional looking things. The less of that we do, the more real our content feels. So I'm sticking with pretty simple editing for those on-screen bullet points and things like that, just to make it a little easier to follow the videos on YouTube. Then there are 3 more things that I am doing with this same piece of content. I am using that content to create my weekly email. This serves kind of double duty. It, number one, drives traffic to those episodes, whether it's on YouTube or the podcast, but it also gives me something to talk about with my list. So when I get ready to write my emails for the month, I don't have to sit down and think, oh my gosh, what am I going to talk to people about this time? I can just go to the podcast episodes that are scheduled or the YouTube videos, and I can pull content from that to schedule out my emails. Now, email, obviously, is a little different. I'm not going to give the entire episode in the email because nobody wants to read a giant email like that. At least not in my audience. My audience likes shorter emails. So I might highlight a couple of talking points and link over to the episode for the rest, or I might even just hint at the episode and ask people to respond. See, email has a different purpose than the podcast or the YouTube videos. So we're taking that same content, the same ideas, and addressing it in a different way that fits that format better. Then I can also use this for social media. And I will be the first to admit, if you go look at my social media, I've been slacking a little lately, but I'm working on getting it back into the rhythm and routine where we pull a video clip from the episode to put onto Instagram. Or maybe over on LinkedIn, I'm grabbing a quote from the episode to make a graphic and then writing a longer post because LinkedIn posts tend to be longer and more detailed. And then the last piece of this that I am just starting to add in is blog posts. Blog posts are great for SEO. I know a lot of people in my audience do still like to read them. These days, it is so easy to use a good prompt or a project in your favorite AI tool. For me, it's Claude, to turn the transcript of that podcast episode into a blog post and still keep your voice. So the prompt that I am using specifically says, don't rewrite this, use my actual words, but put it in a blog post format, meaning break it into sections, give it headings and subheadings, clean up some of the more conversational language and turn it into a piece that's written a little more formally, although my blog post style is still pretty casual. But we would take out some of the kind of chit chat that we might do in a video content or a podcast episode. This to me is a really great way to use AI because I'm not using the AI to come up with the content, right? The content is still mine. It is still my thoughts. It's still my process, my opinions, my perspective, whatever it is. I'm just using the AI tool to take what I already created and reformat it for a different platform. And that's a really great use of AI that doesn't turn your content into, I'm just going to say it, AI-generated fluff that looks like everybody else's stuff out there. Keep in mind, when you are promoting this content to, your email list or whoever, send that one email with links to all of it rather than multiple different emails. For me, the podcast and the YouTube video are published on the exact same day so that when I email, I can give options for where to watch. Blog posts tend to come a little bit later, and I don't always email out about those. So that's a little different, but keep in mind when you're sending those emails, the way to keep from annoying people is to serve them by giving them different opportunities to access the content in the way that works for them, rather than emailing lots of times about essentially the same thing. All right, so here is what I want you to do this week. First of all, think about what your easiest content format is going to be. What is the thing that just naturally comes out of you when you start creating content? Is it typing it into a blog post? Is it recording something where you're just talking it out? Do that first every week, and then let everything else flow from that source piece of content. If you're just getting started and you think voice recording is the way to go for you, then grab your phone and just record yourself talking through your ideas in a voice memo. If you have an iPhone, you can actually grab the transcript right from the voice memos. It's not always the most accurate. I like to use OpenAI's Whisper to transcribe because it's a little more accurate, but that's a little techie and you have to have API keys and things. You can grab the transcript right from your voice memos app in an iPhone. Not sure about Androids because it's been a long time since I've had one of those. But use that content, the transcript of that, as your source to create whatever other pieces of content you're doing. So if you're just getting started, like I said, start with that one voice recording and then use that to create your first content, whether it's a podcast, a video, a blog post, whatever it is. And then don't try to do all of this at one time. Add one platform at a time. So if you're already creating video content, can you add a blog post to it? If you're already creating a podcast, can you start recording it with video and drop those videos onto YouTube? Honestly, I've been so surprised at how little work it takes to do that, especially if I am thinking about YouTube and making sure I'm recording in a way that's going to work for video while I'm recording the episode. All right, let's talk really quick about what AI tools I'm using and how I'm doing this from a super practical standpoint. So I've shared before, I like to use Claude for any AI where I'm going to write things. So in Claude, one of the keys that I have found is using projects. And this does require a paid subscription, I am pretty sure. But I have a separate project for each thing I'm creating. So thinking one output, one project. So I have one project to take that voice memo transcript and create a podcast outline. From there, I'm recording the podcast episode, and then I have a transcript of the podcast that I am going to use for the rest of my projects. I have one for weekly email writing, so I've given it my brand voice. I've given it different styles of emails that I like, samples of ones that have worked well. It knows how I like to sign off on my emails and things so that it writes them the way that I like. So I give it my transcript and I ask it to give me options for different ways to write this email. And so it will give me 2 or 3 different choices for what type of email I'm going to write this week. Is it going to be a story? Is it going to be a super short email where I ask for replies or send a link over to content? Whatever different types of emails. Then I have a separate project that I'm still working on refining for blog post conversion. So taking that transcript and turning it into a blog post. When it comes to creating content, I really have found that using Claude or using those projects is so important. Now, if you use and love ChatGPT for writing, great, go for it. But use those projects so you can train each project on the type of output that you want. And then use your source content, whatever that is, to feed into each project. The other big thing you want to make sure that you are feeding your project is your brand voice. That way, your project in Claude or ChatGPT or wherever is maintaining your brand voice while it's creating things. And if you are struggling with your own brand voice, I have a little something that you might be interested in. It is called the AI Brand Voice Fix. This is a simple little project that you can work through with some great AI tools to create your own brand voice. I've created a whole project that will let you voice record yourself talking and it will pull out your brand voice. So if you're not ever sure how to tell AI what you want to sound like, then this might be for you. You can get it at kristendoyle.co/fix. Bottom line, you do not have to reinvent the wheel and create brand new, different content for every platform that you're on. Start with whatever feels easiest for you, and then turn that one piece of content into content on every platform where you are so that you can serve your audience wherever they like to consume content. Your action step this week, like I said, is pick your one source content format, create one piece of content from that, and then choose that one next platform you're going to repurpose it for. Don't overwhelm yourself trying to be everywhere at once. Just add one thing at a time. If you want to see this system in action, you can find today's episode as a podcast, a YouTube video, and a blog post, and I'll link all of them in the show notes so you can see how I've adapted the same content for each platform. I'll talk to you soon. If you loved today's episode and want more where that came from, check out my Everything page. It's your one-stop shop for all things savvy selling. From free resources and templates to full courses and coaching, you'll find everything I offer to help your business shine in one handy place. You can also get all the details about my web design and WordPress maintenance services to keep your website as polished and savvy as your products. Just head over to kristendoyle.co/everything, or you can find the link in this episode's show notes. See you in the next episode of The Savvy Seller.